It's just a game, isn't it?
When I was younger, I used to be obsessed with ghosts and all sorts of haunting shows. Now, I'd never particularly had a reason to believe my house was haunted, but one day my brother came home claiming to have found $10 out of nowhere. I'll never know for sure if he was just messing with me, but after curiosity got the best of me, I asked him where he really got the $10 from. Stupid me assumed maybe a friend. Perhaps he stole it from my parents' wallet. My parents never claimed to have been missing any money, however. Something they would have definitely voiced distraught about if they'd noticed we'd taken their cash. The story he gave me was that a young girl, about the age of 7, had followed him onto the school bus that afternoon. He'd never met this girl and had never seen her around at school, but she decided to sit in the seat in front of him. After riding the bus for a little while, she started to talk to him. Nobody else could see her, according to him, and other kids were giving him looks. Eventually, she handed him $10 with a note, and then, subsequently, got off the bus at the next stop. I immediately assumed he was lying and laughed, of course. I asked him to show me the note, which he promptly pulled out from his room and passed me a tiny piece of paper. A shiver ran down my spine, as the note wasn't in his handwriting, but in the handwriting of what I could only assume to be a young child. It read, "I'll help you, but only this time," which I believe was in response to the facts that my brother was begging my parents for a Zelda charm bracelet for months, which they refused to buy him. Given that he had $10 now, he could just buy it himself though. Of course, me being me, was extremely intrigued by this, even if it seemed absurd. I suggested we make a makeshift Ouija board and see if we can contact anyone. So we wrote the alphabet on a piece of paper and grabbed a necklace to hover over the DIY board. My brother was interested too, so he told me it could be fun. Mind you, I was in the 6th grade and he was in the 4th at the time, so any sort of movement from the necklace caught our attention, and we immediately thought it was a ghost. After asking a few questions, the necklace began to move and shake. Either my brother was really good at tricking me by slowly sliding the necklace across the board, or it really was something paranormal. We were able to get a name, Kate, after asking dumb things like, "Did you watch me complete the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time?" and getting a yes. Me and my brother decided to stop for the night, after being creeped out. We'd never said goodbye before ending though. Eventually, playing with the board would be a daily occurrence. We thought we'd made a friend and truly believed that someone was talking to us. Me and my brother decided to take things a step further and try to record something. So we got both our tablets, placed them in front of our TV and hit record. The first thing I asked was, if someone's here, move something in the room. Nothing. Okay, well, maybe the ghost is shy. We decided to ask the same question, but this time we said we'll leave the room to give it time. We went downstairs for 5 minutes, and when we got back upstairs, our tablets had both fallen to the floor and stopped recording. Maybe a coincidence? I mean, things fall, especially when you're not careful at placing them. So we brushed it off. In December of 6th grade though, things got weird. I'd started hearing voices in my head, claiming that they were the ghost I was talking to while playing the Ouija board. I'd gotten so scared one night, I'd grabbed the Bible one of my religious friends had gifted me. I'm not religious, and would sleep with it. Eventually I told my mum that there was a ghost telling me scary things. I won't get into detail as some of it was a little graphic. she and my dad argued for a while about whether or not I was schizophrenic, and if I should see a therapist. So out of fear, I never told them I was hearing voices again, but I'd space out often, talking and having conversations with this thing I believed to be a ghost. Eventually, I forgot about the ghost, and we'd no longer talked. I will never know what that voice was, if I was genuinely insane, if they were just intrusive thoughts. I was just glad for it to have stopped. Nothing necessarily paranormal has happened to me since, besides my TV turning on randomly in the middle of the night, or the feeling of someone pushing my legs with some sort of unknown force every once in a while. But I do still have this looming feeling that ever since I've played with that Ouija board, I have some sort of spirit attached to me, following me. Not a bad one, but just a looming presence.
When I was in middle school, I went to a friend's birthday sleepover where we did the typical girl things, painted nails, did makeovers, and watched a movie. It was all normal until my friend suggested we make a Ouija board. We scribbled out yes, no, and goodbye, along with numbers and the alphabet. She told us all the rules, and we nodded in agreement that we would follow. I remember being scared, wanting to fit in, but also wondering if this was a good idea. I remember the first movement happened, and I looked across to the girl facing me, insisting she hadn't moved it. She had said it was not her that moved the clear pebble we were all using as a planchette. We asked dumb questions like who we each liked and if our crushes liked us, typical middle school girl things. I don't remember much of these sessions other than a particular name, Wanda, and that we had asked her if she was a demon, and she had told us she was not. After a while, this was no longer scary, and we began to enjoy it more and more. I remember feeling so excited, like I just wanted to keep playing, as if it were a video game. The next day, I told my dad about it. My family was pretty open-minded about those things, so he wasn't mad or ashamed. He just wanted to make sure we were all safe. Fast forward, and I was in the first year of college, and I was over at a friend's place for a birthday, and she had talked about how she found a Ouija board and we should try it. I was a little hesitant as now I realised the true implications of them. We eventually started setting boundaries, but I was still hesitant to believe that the planchette was moving. My friend asked questions like, when's my birthday? And what's my name? I shifted to questions not about myself, tending to ask about the entity rather than me. My friend suddenly asked if the spirit knew my deceased grandfather's name, and it spelled out L-E-U-I-S. I was in shock because none of my friends had known that. I know that I hadn't directed the planchette to the letters, so I was surprised to see that it was correct. Later on, another friend of mine had said that she felt something grab her foot from under the table. I was right next to her and I didn't feel anything at that point. I'm like, let's just say goodbye and call it a night. It was all just too weird. I've never had a truly bad experience, but it's still very creepy, to say the least.
I'll start off by saying, I have had a ton of experiences with the paranormal. These are just some of them. So as a teen, I was gifted a Ouija board for Christmas, and used it on several occasions. Sometimes I'd get something, but lots of the time it was nothing. So here are some of the tales. Me and my friend had heard of this notorious spot near where we lived, where people would drive out, lose service, and then their cars would shut off and not work again until they hit one of the other roads. We decided to go out there with my board and see if we could make any contact. Down this road there was a turn-off that was gated off, but there was no lock on the gate and it was wide open. So we drove down there, and it took us to a house foundation of a torn down stone house. My friend S, J, K and my boyfriend at the time D. Me and my friends J and K started with the Ouija, my boyfriend D and my friend S blazing in front while we girls were in the back of the truck. And we got contact right away. The entity we talked to seemed to be 2 children. The spelling was childlike and even playful. The talk seemed to be asking us about our clothes and stuff like that. Then it went silent, and these 2 twin entities were scared of another present entity, which was apparently their father, who, as ghosts go, was a right creep. The children kept on coming and going periodically, between when their father would leave. As we talked to them, they told us how he hurt Mummy, and when she was gone, he'd hurt them too. Now we didn't think much of this until we took a walk around the property and found a ditch full of household belongings. Kids' toys in duplicate, and kid-sized Led Zeppelin t-shirts side by side. This basically confirmed that this may be real. We had lost contact with all the entities at one point, and the father was pretty mad at us. I can't exactly remember why. We'd spent hours communicating with these entities in my friend's truck, and with that many people in a vehicle, the windows will fog up. This is when it starts getting really weird. On the inside of the fogged up window was one child-sized handprint. Just one. And it was skeletal. My friend Jay, who had small hands, measured her hand against it, and it was far too small. Also, the window was not fogging up in that spot again. Shortly after we spotted this handprint, bang! Something hit the roof of S's truck so hard, the roof bowed in and then back out. You have never seen 5 people clown car out of a truck so fast. We searched on top of the truck, in the box on the ground, nothing. We thought maybe a branch had broken off a tree we were under, or maybe a goose. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. When we checked the roof, there were 2 handprints, adult-sized. We're a bit freaked out at this point, so we all get back into the truck and my friend S tries to start it. It won't start, and we couldn't get reception on any phone. I was in the back, looking out the window, and I had noticed this strange mist coming over the grass towards us. I've never seen fog or mist move like this. As it got closer, it formed into a column, and it turned into a shape of a tribesman. It was wearing a type of headdress with feathers, a necklace, what looked like pants, and moccasins, and it was bare-chested. It took about 4 steps, and it was steps because the grass moved and I could distinctly make out every detail, and then disintegrated back into the mist, floating across the ground. It travelled in front of my friend's truck and moved off down a path through the trees. My friend S had seen it too and tried to start his truck again. It started. We then tried to follow him. We got close to the direction it had moved and the truck turned off again. My friend was annoyed at his truck because this never happens. We decided it's time to go and had to wait for his truck to start again. The truck turned off 3 more times before we could leave this area, and once more when we were on the road out of there. My friend was truck savvy and he could not figure out what was wrong with it. His truck never did this, ever, again.
People often wonder what would happen if they used a Ouija board. Some people do it for fun. Some people use it for spiritual communications. I can tell you now that if you have no experience in using a Ouija board, do not do it. This is the story about what happens when you use one for fun without knowing the consequences. So when I was about 12, it was Halloween night, and we had just had a Halloween party for family and friends. A few of my older sister's friends stayed the night, and we ended up just hanging out in our room, which we shared. One of them brought in a Ouija board and said, "Hey, why don't we try this out for fun?" One of her friends had a spirit tethered to her. That's what she claimed. Whether or not it was true, I still don't know to this day, but she said let's go for it. I wanted nothing to do with it, but being 12 years old and curious, I observed what they were doing. They didn't follow any of the rules that you're supposed to, as far as not putting it back on a blanket, not lighting the proper candles, and other things that you're supposed to do prior to using the Ouija board. So they were just calling on spirits that they could think of and trying to communicate with them. That's when things got a little creepy. So, if I remember correctly, one of the spirits that came to the board was a woman, and she was not friendly. She started spelling out profanities and they quickly shut that down. I can't remember what the second spirit was, but it was also not friendly, and it called itself Satan. All of a sudden, one of my sister's friends started panicking. She said she saw a man out on the streets with a red and black face. We did not see said man out on the street, so I don't know if she was having a panic attack and seeing things, but who knows. The next event that happened was kind of insane and terrifying. All of a sudden, my sister started zoning out and just stared at nothing. We tried to get her attention and she had no response. Then she got up and walked downstairs, and we were confused, so we followed her. We heard something in the kitchen, so we went and checked that out. My sister is standing over the sink, taking knives from the counter in the knife holder, and she's throwing them into the sink, one after the other. We tried to get her attention, and she does not respond to us. Then, she goes and grabs the carafe off the coffee maker and drinks black coffee straight out the carafe. Mind you, she hated coffee at the time, yet she drank the whole thing. She got up and went to sit on the couch, and a couple of minutes later, she blinked and came to. She asked us why we were staring at her and how did she get downstairs. To this day, she has no memory of what happened. 21 years later, we are pretty sure that a spirit took over her body and just had fun with her. My grandma, after my mum told her what happened, came into the house and blessed it with holy water. It seemed to help for a while, and then I had a series of nightmares a year later, so I'm wondering if the holy water didn't really have much effect on the house. So, this is a lesson learned, and a disclaimer to anybody who wants to mess with a Ouija board. If you do not have real experience with it, do not use one. You never know what you're going to be invited into your home.
I'm still trying to make myself believe it was just a nightmare. I wish it was a nightmare. I mentioned playing the Ouija board 3 times. I wish I never did play it. Even now I don't know what the hell I was thinking, or if I even was at all. I think I was bored or whatever, maybe desperate to talk with a loved one. They were played at night. The first time I played, I only broke one rule. I was playing alone. I was playing on the floor of my small room. Nothing happened, so I ended the game properly, saying goodbye. The second time I still played alone. The pointer moved around, but really slow and in no direction at all. Just a circle. See, I didn't think much of this. Maybe it needed time to reply. Never landed on a letter or a number. It moved from a circle to trying to get off the board. I ended the game like last time. The third time, I asked what its name was, and it spelt out Z-O-Z-O. I tried keeping calm and ended the game. I heard of Z-O-Z-O. I knew I messed up horribly. When I tried going to sleep at about 2 in the morning, something scratched my foot. Instantly, I couldn't move. I felt like I was being held down. My door was cracked open, but nothing was there. Something was definitely there. No human can get under my bed without shuffling around trash. Yes, I'm not exactly the neatest, but something has to be under my bed because I fear a human or thing crawling on all fours. When I looked at the cracked open door and started overthinking every possibility that could happen, except for horrendous murder, in this weird second-person view, I vividly see the most twisted murder I can't bring myself to repeat. I'll just say decapitation and a deep slash over the throat in the most violent way possible. There was a shadow thing crouching down beside my parents' bed. Whatever it was, I'm banging on my neighbor's door, crying, screaming and shaking really hard. But I'm still in my bed staring at the cracked open door, quietly crying. Then in that weird view, I'm seeing everything again until morning. That hasn't happened again, but I threw the board out and just believed it was a loop dream. Until I see the same shadow thing walking casually from the hallway to the kitchen about a week ago. I'm not the only person seeing that thing. Our 3 cats see it too. 1 minute, they'll be playing and having fun. Then they suddenly stop and stare at whatever got their attention. The next thing, they dig their claws into the rug as they run after whatever they'd seen. They end up in my room I stupidly played that game in. I'm a night owl and I'm always tense at home. My muscles often hurt because of how I'd tensed them so often. My work was supposed to be a little bit of normalcy. It did work for a while, until the encounters with them happened. We are going to be a little understaffed for a while. Some may not get a 30-minute break. It's sort of falling apart. Since that happened, my door has stayed shut. That board is at the dump now, and honestly, I'm being stared at a bit more often from the hall. The shadow that peeks around corners seems to be more curious. That's different from the shadow I've seen in my parents' room. The shadow in my parents' room was bigger, potentially taller than the curious one. It sticks around a little longer, and I can get a bit more of a look at it. In a glimpse. Than a glimpse. I hope I never experience, and I can get a bit more of a look at it than a glimpse. I hope I never experience whatever that was. A nightmare. Whatever that view shift was about. Never playing that board again. Maybe it was a nightmare and I didn't know I fell asleep. Maybe I was half asleep. I was trying to sleep, but I just laid in bed, not feeling tired yet. I don't mind not being believed, being criticized. School did that more often than teaching. But this is killing me, because I was awake when this happened.
I want to share this experience in hopes to find others that may have had a similar one, or discuss what might have happened. This is 100% true, and every time I tell this story, I get goosebumps on my arms and the back of my neck. When I was around 9 or 10 years old, my mother used to be into Ouija boards. She's a spiritual person, but as a kid, I was never into that type of stuff. I was into playing video games with my brother and playing outside. One night, she asked if we wanted to join. We declined, of course, and we went to go play games in our room, and she goes to do her thing in another room. As the night went on, we got tired and went to bed. My brother and I shared the same room, and we both slept on either side of the room in our twin beds. The way that my bed was situated, I could see into the hallway when I was laying down. I remember waking up that night, not sure what time it was, but I remember feeling peaceful. Usually when I would wake up, I would feel scared because it was dark, but this time, it was different. I remember it feeling like some kind of sleep paralysis. I was staring into the hallway and I couldn't look away. Then, a bright blue figure appears. It looks like an old man, dressed in a flannel shirt with a cane. He was walking past our door and stopped, looked into our room, and I made eye contact with him. I don't remember him smiling or anything, but I felt completely at peace. I was not scared the slightest, and as a kid, I would have expected myself to lose my marbles. A second or two after we made eye contact, he looked down the hallway towards my mother's room and started walking, leaving my sight from the doorway. I went back to bed after this, not scared or frightened, just peaceful. The next morning, my mother was bringing my brother and I to school, and I started talking about what I saw. My mother burst into tears, crying hysterically, so much so that she had to pull over. I tell her the whole story, how I felt and what the man looked like. Her tears stop, and she starts to explain that she made contact with her grandfather through the Ouija board. My mother is from another country, and I've never met her side of the family, nor seen pictures of them. My mother had a rough upbringing from her mum and dad, and even now, talks about it very seldom. Her grandfather was someone she felt safe and comfortable with. When I was telling her what he looked like, she said that I described him perfectly. Even the clothes he was wearing was something she remembered. I haven't experienced something like that since. Odd things here and there, of course, but nothing like this. That blue light will forever be burnt into my memory.
Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.